Hello, my name is Tobi. I sing in a band called Trash Boat, and you are watching Pretty in Noise.
Welcome to another interview on prettyinnoise.de. I am here with Tobi today, Tobi Duncan from Trash Boat. How are you?
That is my full name, yeah. No, I'm good. We've been blessed by this venue today. This is one of the nicest venues that we've ever been in. The catering was insane. All the rooms are just lovely. The staff are lovely, and I'm hoping the show is going to live up to what this venue has given us today.
Yeah, just for context, we're in Groningen, in the Netherlands. Yes, Groningen. Yeah, it's Dutch. I'm not Dutch, but I live here now. I speak a little bit, so it's you hear a lot of so. Groningen, yeah, Groningen. Yeah, the Osterpoort, a really nice venue. I definitely agree.
Lovely. One of the best that I've ever been in.
Yeah, it's great. I've been to a few venues now in the Netherlands, and they all kind of it's different. It's different than.
We had a bottle of red and white wine on each table for dinner. The catering was wild. Lovely.
All right. Well, my first question is actually kind of about that. Talking about touring, where you just did tour before, USA, Canada.
Yes.
Also with Enter Shikari. So again, all British lineup, I think.
Who opened that tour? That's really rude of me.
That's right. I mean,
I have a memory issue. Things like that fall out of my head. But I think it was an all English lineup. Yeah, I do remember it being all English, but I can't remember who was opening. Yeah,
I'm ashamed that I also don't know right now. I could have known that, but anyway, yeah. How was that? How is it touring with? I mean, now with Shikari, you're doing obviously a long run in the US and here. How is it with them? I kind of want to go with how is it being with only English people on a tour? What's special about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily English people, but we know the Enter Shikari guys just from the fact that they are a local band to us. Like when I was like 14 years old, I was going to Enter Shikari shows. But I guess if you're touring with all English bands, you get over the awkward period of touring quicker, because no matter what, like when you hop on the road with the band that you've never been on the road with before, there's always going to be maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks where you don't want to step on each other's toes, you don't want to sort of get in each other's faces, and you need to sort of warm to each other. And I guess the fact that we're both from the same city meant that it was a lot easier for us to just click. And yeah, I've been going to Enter Shikari shows since I was 14, so I sort of feel like I know them a little bit already, and obviously they probably didn't feel the same way, but you couldn't tell. Like, they're very nice guys, very inviting, and it felt like we've been friends for a long time when we first hopped on the road with them.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I also, as I mentioned before in this interview you did at Download this year, I think you said that it actually was your first show ever, Shikari, in your hometown, if I'm not mistaken. But you definitely saw them very early on.
Yes, so the first ever gig that I went to was an Enter Shikari show. I didn't intentionally go. It was at like a youth centre in a town near where I lived, and this was in 2006. And I was 14. I just wanted to go out with my friends, and there was music playing at this place, and we watched some of the bands, and one of them was Enter Shikari, and I was blown away. It was very cool.
Awesome. This must be really cool having such a band from your hometown. All right. Well, you're now in mainland Europe, in the Netherlands, and you're going to Germany and other countries. What are the things you kind of looking forward to? Well, you also have to think of you're going to like Groningen, Potsdam, so it's kind of those B cities, I would say, maybe. Yeah. What are the things you're looking forward to in those kind of shows? What excites you, like Netherlands, Germany?
Yeah, most of them we've never played before. The only times we've ever really come to Europe have been A-town runs, as you would say. And we've played a few. I think we've played Dresden before. I think we've played Groningen before. And one or two of the other places on this tour, but we've never played Lille, which we played last night or the night before. And there's a bunch of places that we've never played before, and I think a lot of these shows were sold out before we got announced, or that they'd gone on sale before we got announced on the tour. So we get the opportunity to not only play in a place that we've never played before, but in front of people that have potentially never seen us before. So that's 2 wins, because then you get to win over a lot more potential new fans.
Yeah, new people listening to music. Awesome. Well, another thing I learned about you today is that you also drove and TM'd bands yourself, I think. Yeah.
That's something I used to do a lot a few years ago, because I owned a van, and it was just that was my job. So whenever I wasn't touring with Trash Boat, I would be driving and managing other bands. I'm driving this tour right now in the RV that we have rented. I'll occasionally drive a friend's band, or if Chris asked me to maybe cover for him, because I drove a band called Daisy Brain recently. But I have another full-time job now, so I don't drive as much, but I'll do it if I have the time, or if if we go on tour. Most of the time I'll be driving, just because I've just done it so much.
Yeah. Nice. Well, that's double duty, or even more so. I mean, driving, performing, doing this right now, and probably other stuff as well. What did you learn from those things and doing all these things from being in a band? Like, do you think it's different for you than for anyone else being in a band and touring, kind of? Because of that, you have these experiences with what it takes to actually get things on the road.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a long period where touring was all I was doing. This is when I lived at home with my parents as well. So, but I was never there because I was always trying to schedule work for in between Trash Boat tours. So I was just constantly on the road, and it just became like a habit. It just was like muscle memory just kicked in. It's like I just know how to exist. I know how to exist on the road, hotels, people's floors, small venues, big venues. Like it's all just kind of day-to-day stuff. But as after I moved out of my parents' house, and I obviously needed to pay bigger bills than the ones I was paying when I lived with my parents, I had to get a job that paid more money. And you know what? I'm not so angry about that, because being on the road all the time it can be tough. But I mean, I love it. I like meeting new people. I like being very social. I like sort of, particularly with younger bands who maybe haven't done as much touring, I can sort of share information with them, help them survive on the road, stuff like that. So I still like to take the odd driving job here and there, but no, it's
Yeah, well, actually, I did one tour as a driver myself back in 2017, and we did those, sleep on the floor things and sleep in the van in winter, and in the UK actually too, with not so good catering oftentimes. And
catering in the UK.
It was often just bread, water, maybe beer. That's basically it. It was, bit rough, but well, we're here in the Netherlands now, so it's
Europe knows how to take care of you, for sure.
Okay, well, let's actually talk about your band, which is mostly why we're doing this interview, I guess. What's the first thing people should know about Trash Boat live?
Live is where I feel as though I'm the most comfortable, and I think that reflects in our performance. I'm not the biggest fan of performing in a studio. I feel very restricted, particularly if I have to like stand with a microphone on a mic stand and like hold my earphones and sing. I much prefer to be able to move and sweat and throw my weight around. So I feel like if you're looking for the pure Trash Boat experience and you want to see us at our best, it's live, because that's where I feel like I perform the best. I have the most strength, I have the most confidence. So yeah, it's where I feel the most comfortable. It's where I feel we do the best.
All right. Yeah, great. I mean, I've never seen you before live, so it's gonna be good. Yeah. Well, your latest album, let's talk about that for a minute. Don't You Feel Amazing? What was your vision for the album, and what do you think that you succeeded in making the album as you wanted it to be before you set out to do it?
Vision's interesting. I put so much micromanaging thought into our first 2 full-length records, Nothing I Write You and Crown Shyness. It was very introspective, lots of deep thought about my past, how experiences have made me into the person that I am, for better, for worse, trauma, happiness, all this kind of stuff. And those lyrics were very, very intensely micromanaged and researched, and I wanted to make sure that they flowed perfectly and blah, blah, blah. And then I wanted to take a very sort of drastically different approach to the writing of this latest record. I wanted it to be a lot fresher, sort of a bit more off the top. We ended up writing sort of 4 songs in the studio, and some of the lyrics I would write in like a couple of hours because I wanted them to be really sort of raw and genuine. And I kind of flipped the introspective element on its head and was much more sort of hedonistic and extroverted and blasé, and just wanted to say what I was feeling at that time and express my present rather than my past. And I feel like we had such a good time in the studio. I feel like I definitely achieved that goal. There's some great songs on there. There's some great, and like some of the lyrics that I wrote in an hour are as good, if not better, as some of the lyrics that took me like a year to write with previous records. So it definitely opened up a new avenue in terms of songwriting for me, and one that I now incorporate into a mix of both. It's not like it's not like I've abandoned one style of writing for another, but I tested out another, and now I have like this hybrid method where I can pick and choose depending on how the song feels to me.
All right. Yeah, I also believe that you, or I know, I think, I believe, know, and think that you did the whole record during the bad C time, COVID. Lockdown, yeah. Was that, I don't want to dwell on this bad time of our lives too much, but do you think it was drastically changing your writing and how the whole album came along?
Absolutely. We did the whole thing over Zoom. Okay. We obviously couldn't go to each other's houses. We had to send each other ideas over the internet, and then we would have Zoom calls where we would sort of have the track on someone's screen, and we'd be writing over the internet, which is obviously very, very hard. We managed to find one studio that would allow us to go and track stuff. I think this was just after lockdown. I don't think it was during lockdown. We wrote during lockdown and then we recorded just after lockdown ended. And it's like I said, we didn't get as much done over Zoom as we thought we would, but we went to the studio anyway, and we wrote a lot of tracks in the studio as well. And we had 2 studios going at once. So me, Oakley, and Jason would be doing drums and vocals, and then Dan, Ryan, and James in another room would be tracking the guitars. So we were full steam ahead the whole time, and yeah, it was massively impactful, but it didn't make it worse. We made it work. Okay. We made it work, and I feel like we got a lot of good stuff done. It mutated our work ethic, made us really sort of band together and get a lot of bang for our buck when it came to the studio time, because we were only there for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And we got
quick.
Yeah, we got 11 songs done in 2 weeks, which is wild. So yeah, I wouldn't choose to do that again. Yeah, no. I wouldn't choose to have the writing sessions over Zoom, but we made it.
Nice. Yeah, you use steam engine through the process, kind of. Well, the next question is a bit about the music itself again, and I hope I can ask this right, because I kind of want to, again, ask about this whole you being from the UK and the UK music scene, because what I feel like sometimes with your band, also with Enter Shikari and a lot of bands, first of all, there are a lot of bands from the UK that come over, but I kind of feel this sort of UK rock influence. I don't know if you think that is a thing. Sometimes. Some, yeah.
But
what I wonder if do you agree that there is sort of a gene that you guys have that makes you play this kind of UK rock thing? And
I guess, yeah. I mean,
it's a weird question, yeah, but
well, no, we're such an excessively eclectic band. I don't feel like we sound like anyone in particular or take one influence so strongly that we are the sort of that band that sounds like this person. Maybe to our detriment, who knows? We have so many influences and we incorporate all of them into our songs, and we write whatever we feel like at the time. So every song as you go through our albums is going to sound a little bit different, and some of them might have really high energy, low energy, different influences, blah blah blah. And that varies from album to album as well. Like our first album was very pop punk, our second album was sort of like very fast post-hardcore, and then our third album was very much like rock. And who knows what will happen with the fourth album, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think it's specifically like an English thing, but I guess it has to be because we're English. We didn't sit while we were writing and think we have to live up to the standard of English rock and roll. We simply followed our feelings and our gut and wrote whatever we felt like writing, and then the product of that is entirely coincidental. Okay. Like, we didn't really have a musical vision as such that we needed to follow.
Yeah, I just thought it was quite interesting because I heard with lots of UK bands that there's a certain sound that kind of matches the whole thing. It's the accent, yeah, maybe.
Enter Shikari. Like when you kind of have a little bit of an English accent when you sing, it just changes the whole vibe. Biffy Clyro as well, Scottish. But it most certainly becomes like a UK rock thing when you get the accent involved, for sure.
Maybe so, yeah. Maybe for a German listening to it, maybe I'm the only one thinking like this, but maybe others agree. Who knows?
Don Broco are probably the biggest current example. They have like the thickest English accent, I think, and Shikari.
And if you hear Biffy Clyro talk without singing.
Yeah, very Scottish. Very Scottish.
Okay, well, my last question is kind of a big one, I guess. Because I read online, Upset magazine wrote this on the cover story. It says, "Don't You Feel Amazing is a journey of self." And then later on, you're quoted, "I've got a lot of skeletons in my closet, and I've got a lot of bad decisions that I've made, a lot of things I need to repent for and be honest about." Sort of, yeah, I guess. But what I wonder with this in mind, kind of, what do you want to, or what shall be kind of the key takeaway or some takeaways from the album that you put in, like, okay, I did this for you to know that now you.
Well, I won't be picking specific skeletons to air myself out quite that easily. I don't know. I guess like the theme of hedonism and leaning into instant gratification, not really thinking too much about balance or my future. These are all things that I felt like I was slipping into, and I would always tell myself it wasn't my fault, because I've suffered with a lot of physical disability ever since my teens, and then as a result of that, I could very easily have a really good excuse as to why my life is going terribly, right? So if I chose to, do nothing all day, take drugs, be sad, blah, 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 if anyone ever called me out on that and was like, hey, you need to take better care of yourself, I have a history of physical disability in which I could sit back and say, hey, you don't get it, all right? You don't get it. I've suffered a lot, so just leave me alone. And that is something that I'm taking a lot of responsibility for nowadays, like over the last few years, because I want to not do that. That's like one of the things that I want to make sure that I don't do, and that's what I did do in my sort of from maybe 19 to 24, 25. That era was a very like, hey man, leave me alone, I've got a lot going on. And I would just, I still worked. I was working a full-time job. I was doing the band, and I was still like a high-functioning person. But I also, behind the scenes, was not treating myself very well, taking a lot of drugs, had a lot of very bad habits, and I was quite sly about it. Like, you wouldn't know. You remember how Derek Whibley from Sum 41, before he had his like big like kidney or liver failure or whatever it was, in one of his interviews he said that you'd never notice how drunk he was. He wasn't like a messy drunk that would like fly around and beat people up and smash stuff. Like, he could have a whole bottle of Jack Daniels and you barely know he'd been drinking, because like it wasn't about being the center of attention and being like the drunk and being very social and having people know about it. It was the opposite. He wanted to keep it very low key, very secret, because he just wanted to get that dopamine and be hammered and not have anyone know about it. It was the same for me. Like, I wanted to do all of these horrible things. I wanted to take all of the drugs and have all these bad habits, but I didn't want people to know about it. I just wanted to feel good and then carry on working. And then, yeah, a lot of the songs on this album are sort of just me shining a light on myself. It's like I'm outing myself and talking about, some of the songs are about how good it felt to do that. Some of the songs are about the consequences. Some are about the thoughts leading up to me doing those things. And I wanted to just like throw it all out there and make some cool rock songs about it so that I could get on stage, hold myself accountable, have fun with it, maybe help people who are going through similar things feel like they can have a reference point as to how you can do that, still hold yourself accountable, be a productive member of society. Because I think that's the worst thing, it's obvious when people are doing bad things, but it's obvious people can actively want to help them. But if you're doing bad things and you're really good at keeping it a secret, that's the worst, because no one will ever find out, and you'll be able to do those things for years and years and years, and it'll be very, very quiet, and then after 10, 20, 30 years it'll become a real big fucking problem. So I wanted to like out myself and just throw it all out there in some heavy rock and roll songs, and then sing it to myself every day on stage and remind myself to stay responsible.
Do you still feel this
all the time, of course?
Yeah.
When you're an addict, I don't think you ever stop being an addict. All of the things that I don't do anymore, I miss every day.
Can you separate yourself on stage from this, or actually literally?
Sure. Yeah. I still have a lot of bad habits, but none so bad as the ones that I used to have. So I'm on an upward slope, and I no longer feel I have a problem that is working its way towards being a much bigger problem. All of my problems are very manageable now.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, we definitely know a lot more about the album now and yourself. Check out Trash Boat. They're on tour next year with I Prevail, I believe. Yeah. Big shows. Yeah. Thank you so much, man.